Thanks so much for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. We get to talk to some amazing people on this show, and that is what is coming up next. Our next guest really doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to do one anyway because I have to. You know him certainly as one of the Fab Five on Queer Eye on Netflix, and also from his podcast of the same name that I'm announcing right now. It is Karamo joining us here on the show. Karamo, thank you so much for being here with us today.
I'm glad to be here with you, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, excited to talk to you about everything that you have going on. And to start off, let's talk about the podcast because you get to talk to some really great people. It covers a lot of great topics, but I want to get from you, for everybody out there who maybe isn't familiar with it, how would you describe it and what made you want to start this show to begin with?
Sure. So the podcast is called Karamo. A smart woman by the name of Oprah said, you have a name that's unique enough, so brand everything Karamo. So my book is Karamo, my Instagram, my Twitter, everything's Karamo, podcast Karamo. But literally, I started because I've always been in a field of helping people and making sure that people had someone that they could rely on. And, you know, being on Queer Eye, being the one who has to help the minds and hearts of the people we're helping and help them get to their whatever issue is truly blocking them, I was like, oh my gosh, so many people come up to me on the street and they need that same help. So I started the podcast on Luminary so that way people could call in. And so to this day, I always have at least 5 to 15 people who are regular people from around the world who can call in and speak to me and get advice on whatever issue they're going through. Sometimes I have conversations with a mom and a daughter who are fighting and at it, or I'll have a conversation with, a boss and a person who, their employee, and I help navigate those issues. And then I pair them with a celebrity so that, people can, come in and be like, oh, let me hear this, but then they also hear something they're going through. So it just feels really nice that I'm able to extend what I'm doing on Queer Eye to everyone at home, because that's what it should be about anyway.
Well, I love the fact that you're being so interactive, too, with your fans and people who need this help. I mean, it's something you do so well on the show, and yeah, to expand that to other people. And I guess a couple of questions that I have about that. Number one, when it comes to the tech side of things, when it comes to a podcast and that particular medium, what do you find that is different or more engaging with that versus what you do on television?
Sure. So I think what is very interesting is that it actually makes it easier for me. Most people aren't really good empathetic listeners. And so people always joke with me, like on Queer Eye, that when I come on, just know that you're about to cry or that there's tears coming. And that's usually because people aren't given a space to just share. Usually when someone starts talking, someone is already like, so if I'm the listener, I already start thinking about like what I'm going to respond or what solution I'm going to give them, instead of just allowing them to talk. So when people are talking to me, I'm not looking to give them a response. I'm not looking to already come up with a solution in my mind. I'm allowing them to talk. And through that empathetic listening, people then start to have this emotional reaction because they're like, oh, I'm finally being heard for the very first time. And what happens on a podcast is that the same thing happens but even better, because on camera, there's camera people around, there's crew around, sound, everyone's in the moment. And through audio, it's just me and that person. So when I get quiet, they really just start to open up and they start to divulge what they're going through. And then you get to those emotional impacts or like the traumas a lot quicker. And so that's what I love about it.
I love the fact that you also pair it with celebrities as well and bring somebody in to also share in some of that experience. And looking back to some of the episodes, I guess one question that we had was just who's been maybe the most surprising celebrity, or what was the most surprising revelation during one of your shows?
Ooh, I have some that are coming up that haven't come out yet that I can't talk about yet. So I think out of the episodes that we've had so far, I'll just start with my castmates. Most people didn't know that my castmate Bobby Burke had been arrested 4 times, had been in jail, had been within the criminal system, that he was also homeless and living on the streets for many years, because they look at all 5 of us and they're like, oh, they've always had it together. Things have always been great. And they don't realize that we were 5 individuals that literally had to figure out what we've been through. The same thing we're helping with the heroes to go through. And I think a lot of people were surprised at that. Same thing with my castmate Tan. He recently on his episode talked about how his life was constantly in danger. Like there was moments where people tried to kill him because he was Muslim and gay. And I mean, it's like you look at him and you're like, oh, look, he has the perfect life, and don't realize this was a young man that just 10 years ago was running off of a bus because someone was trying to hurt him. And I think, like for me to even get my castmates to open up and reveal about that, just shows like also what other people are going to be revealing on the show.
Wow, that's really powerful right there.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And these are people that you work with, and still you're getting people to open up and talk about that. Looking at it, a couple of other questions here just about this. I'm trying to think of where to go. Talking about, you mentioned opening up and somebody who is in danger there for doing that. And I want to kind of transition to what's going on in the world right now and talk about the social media aspect, because I wanted to get your opinion. Social media is certainly polarizing in a lot of ways. There's a lot of people that have the freedom to talk about issues, but there's also, of course, the fear of harassment and people who are going to go the opposite direction on that. And from your standpoint, do you have an idea of what would be a healthy interaction and engagement, a healthy level of interaction and engagement on social media?
Yeah, no comments. Like literally, I know that Instagram just recently did something where they're taking off likes, or they've done it in some countries. They're trying to experiment here, but it's not the likes that is the problem. I know that they think, I wish I was on that team when they were actually figuring out what was truly affecting the self-esteem of kids and individuals. It's not the amount of likes. It's the fact that people who don't like your photos or who don't like your comments, who just want to be vicious, then start to say things that you then end up reading, and you go down this wormhole, and those narratives get stuck in your subconscious and you start to believe them. And so there is no such thing as a healthy conversation on social media. I do not believe that one bit at all. You have people spouting their point of views and saying this is right, and then other people saying I'm right, but there's no real healthy conversation or communication that's coming to some real solution. I think the only benefit of social media is it does bring awareness to the issues that many people wouldn't be exposed to. So I think that many people would not have understood what was going on with Black lives, and like the systemic issues. Like America tries to act real brand new, like we didn't know people were racist. But like, I think fine, if we're gonna act brand new, I'm glad that social media is there to wake them up. People try to act brand new like they didn't know that people discriminate against women, and that women were being, raped and harassed by, men who abuse their power. And great, social media brought that to our attention. We saw the Me Too movement. We saw change happening. So I think bringing things to people's attention is probably the only benefit of social media, but I do not think social media is a space for any type of healthy conversations.
Interesting. Going from that, I want to talk to you about, I guess, just the idea of technology and in general for you personally here, or especially these last several months where we've had a pandemic, people have been in quarantine. For you, what's the one piece of technology that you found the most valuable over the last few months?
Oh my gosh, my laptop, because I've never Zoomed so much in my life. Oh my gosh, I'm constantly Zooming. But you know what? It's really also, I'm young, so not young, I'm youngish, but I'm 39 years old. And I realize that technology moves so fast. And that in this moment of really having to sit with myself in technology, I realize how intimidated I am by a lot of technology. And so it was in my mind prior to the quarantine, I always thought it was like my mom who was in her 60s, like they're intimidated. But I didn't realize how fast it was until I started having to download apps, and I started having to become my own, tech person in my house. That how much I did not know and how much I do not understand. And I think that, I wish that there was more of a space for people who are of my age or maybe a little bit younger to be able to feel free in saying, I don't know technology without feeling ridiculed. Because sometimes I feel like if I say it, people are like, really? You don't know that? And I found myself, to be honest with you, doing it to my fiance the other day. Like he was doing something on Instagram and I was like, really? You don't know what you're doing? And I was like, oh, snap. That's literally what I need to stop doing, because we're creating this space of like this divide. And we're going into a new age where technology is truly going to be 60 to 70% of all of our lives. And we can't shame people who are not able to keep up with the ever evolving, technological advances. And so I just really want to really just make sure that that conversation being had about like, hey, young people, hey, be patient with somebody. don't make fun of them if they're like, I don't understand what TikTok is, or I don't understand what this app does. Allow them a space to grow and learn. It's the same thing about conversations we're having in the world about everything. Allow people a space to grow and learn, because that's the only way we all can start to bond and we see things to get better.
I could not agree with you more. I used to go on Reddit forums to try to find help with tech issues. That is not the place to go
Not
to
at
ask
all.
questions again.
Hold on. I just downloaded Reddit for the first time during the quarantine. You did too? Oh, my fiance's right here, and he just said that he just downloaded it too. I just downloaded it the other day, and I was like, what is Reddit about? And so now I'm like in this space where I'm like on this wormholes of like asking questions and stuff. So it's so funny that you say that, because I'm starting to discover it's the wrong place to ask certain questions. But even that, like, before I'd have been ashamed to say in 2020, I just downloaded Reddit, but like it's a journey. And so I'm okay with like being okay with the fact that I don't know technology even at 39 and I'm still learning.
Something to ask just about your Fab Five castmates, since we're going on talking about technology. In
Yeah.
your opinion, who is the most tech savvy of the five of you?
Bobby Burke. Bobby Burke is just the most savvy on everything. And that's just the real, like, he keeps himself informed. That's part of his superpower. He wants to know the most in a room. So he's always going to be the one to be like, hey, this is what you do. And on the flip side, I'm the least educated on it. And he and I are the closest. So you can imagine how much Bobby shames me, which is probably why I just said what I said, because he's always like, you don't know that, like, what are you doing? But I know that he still loves me and he tries to be patient with me and show me the way still.
I feel like it's a little different when it's a close friend, giving you a hard time.
Oh yeah, it is. It's a little different. I
That's a
still
little
want
better
to
than
talk
anonymous.
about sometimes. I still want to be like, shut up, but I love him.
All right. I know that we're starting to run out of time with you, and I just want to say, one, just how great a thing it is that you do, not only with what you do with Queer Eye. It's such an amazing show. And you mentioned, that you get people crying sometimes watching your scenes. I mean, they're emotional scenes, but they're so great just how you treat the people that are on the show and what you do with the podcast. And, really, I just want to say thank you for having this out there anytime, but also in particular just during this time when I feel like everybody needs something like that.
I appreciate that. I think that my goal, and I hope that it's come across, is that I wish that we could focus on our mental health the same way we focus on our fitness, our physical health. We're all so proud to go into to tell people, I'm going into the gym, I'm starting a diet. We're just so proud to announce these things. But like, if we're feeling down, if we're feeling anxious, if we're not sure, like, what's going on with our wives, our husbands, our kids, if we're confused about our job, like, we're not as open to sharing that. And so we keep it up here and it starts to fester and get darker. And then we start to get more lost. And what I want people to understand is that you have the freedom and you have the courage inside of you to be open about what you're feeling. Because when you're open about your emotions, that path becomes clearer. It's not so dark anymore. And you realize there's a lot of other people who are feeling the same thing. And together and collectively, you walk down that path feeling confident, knowing that you'll get the life you deserve.
Karamo, right there. Thank you so much for being here on the show. I mean, that was perfect. You perfectly closed that. I just want to say, once again, thank you for being here on our show. Thank you for doing what you do. Karamo podcast on Luminary, Queer Eye on Netflix, and everything else that you do. People should all go check out. Thank you.
Talk to you soon, my friend. Take care now.